23-year-old Audrey Smith is suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old John Grody, for crashing her VW Jetta. Audrey says John had been drinking and lost his cool.
All rise.
That's case number 130 on the calendar in the matter of Smith versus Grody. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Smith, according to what I've read in your complaint, you and Mr. Grody were dating. You went to a Christmas party with him using your car. He drove home from the Christmas party. There was an accident, and he totaled your car. You were a passenger in the car. You want $5,000 so that you can buy a new car, and Mr. Grody says that it was, in fact, an accident. There was snow and ice on the road, and you should have had better insurance if the car was so valuable. That's your defense, right? Okay. Let's see. This Christmas party was on what date?
December 4th of 2004.
And how far from your home was the Christmas party?
Well, from my home, it was about an hour and a half. From where John lives, it was about 40 minutes.
And I see from your complaint that it was originally your intention to sleep over.
Yes.
And you had hotel reservations.
I do not know if there was hotel reservations. I did call to get a receipt for the hotel reservations. They said that...
You made arrangements to stay over.
I did not. John said that he was going to make all the arrangements.
Okay. And that was because...
It was his Christmas party.
And you were both going to be drinking.
Yes.
So that was a very wise thing, to make arrangements to stay over.
Okay, we didn't make arrangements before we got there. Our whole thing was actually that we were going home that night. When we got there was when everybody said, oh, we're all staying here, so do you want to stay? And originally she said she didn't want to stay.
And what
said
about
we
you?
didn't have the money to stay.
Your Honor.
Just a second, he's talking. Go ahead.
So when we were actually, when we were there, and I said, all right, well then, I wanted to stay there. She said we didn't have the money to stay there, so the plan was to drive home after that.
Who didn't have the money?
Both of us. Either of us.
So you didn't have the money either?
Well, I offered to pay. I mean, I had a credit card on me. I could have paid, but then she said she didn't want me to. So the plan was to go home.
Mr. Grody, were you drinking?
Yes, I was.
Was she drinking?
Yeah, she was.
Then you find the money to stay over.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Now, what time did you leave the party?
I had to be around 12:30.
And what time had you arrived at the party?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I believe it was around 8 o'clock.
What kind of alcohol were you consuming that day, Miss Smith?
I had some wine with dinner, and then in the bar area, I was drinking Captain and Diet Coke.
And what were you drinking, Mr. Grody?
Corbel and Diet Coke.
Corbel and Diet Coke. Is that a mix?
It is for me.
What, really? I mean, do you mix those two together, or you drink the Coke as a chaser?
No, I mix them together.
You mix them together?
Yep. I'm a brandy boy, sorry.
I guess it ain't a mimosa. I guess it's a Melissa.
Melissa, that's cute. It's cute. I wouldn't record it anywhere, but it's cute. How many of these bizarre drinks did you have that evening?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So you know that you were in no position to be driving home.
Before we left, I did stop drinking a while before we actually did leave.
How old are you, sir?
23.
How many hours into the drive home did you have this accident?
About 40 minutes. We were about a mile away from my house.
Is there a police report?
Yes, I have an
I'd like
accident
to see
report.
You're driving on a suspended license?
No.
Did you have a license?
Yes, I did.
It says that you were cited for driving too fast for the conditions, failure to notify police of an accident,
Correct.
and operating after a suspension.
Right. Actually, everything didn't go through. I actually paid the ticket that I had it suspended for before that, but it didn't go through in that township.
What was your license suspended for?
For not paying a ticket or not appearing in court for a speeding ticket.
Did you get a ticket for driving too fast for the conditions?
Yes, I did.
Okay. According to your complaint, Ms. Smith, he was angry that evening when you left.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell me about it.
Well, we were all just, socializing, and I went up to the bar to get a drink. And while I was waiting for my drink, a guy just randomly struck up a conversation with me. We were just chatting while I was waiting, and apparently John here didn't like that, and he came up and he had made a remark to the individual that was talking to me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I could definitely, he was aggressive in his body language towards this guy. So I really didn't want to, you know, push the issue. I just stayed where I was, thought that he would just, you know, have like 5 minutes of cool down time and I would stay there. But then immediately he came back up to me and he just said, "We're leaving now." And
what time was that?
I believe it was around 12:15.
Okay, and did you leave?
Yes.
And you let him drive?
Well, I didn't, yes. Physically, I let him drive because I knew I could not physically stop him from driving. He had possession of my keys because I allowed him to drive us to the party. And so he was angry. I was very scared. He's much larger than I am.
Shouldn't have gotten into the car.
I understand. I shouldn't have gotten into the car.
The car's just steel, replaceable.
Understandable. I was clearly not thinking about
the best
thing. Yes, and also, even if it hadn't been drinking, I believe due to the scare factor, I just didn't want him to, of course, damage my property that I worked very hard. And I know that's a very irrational thought. You know, my body is much more precious than a chunk of metal, like you said.
You're right. So what happened on the way home?
He just kept saying that, why were you talking to this guy? This was my party. You're my girlfriend. Being very possessive, being very jealous.
And some of the booze talking, too.
Possibly, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I freaked out and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. You know, we're on country roads and you've been drinking." But it was too late. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now."
And later today.
Did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No.
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Audrey Smith says ex-boyfriend John Grody crashed her VW Jetta while driving drunk. Audrey also says John was irate when he got behind the wheel.
Keep going.
And so he was speeding because he was getting agitated. And I looked at the speedometer, and it was at 80 miles per hour. And I freaked out, and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. You know, we're on country roads, and you've been drinking." But it was too late. Then next thing I remember was him saying, "Oh." And then I blacked out momentarily. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now." And I was very disoriented. And so he pulled me out through the driver's side door. And...
Okay.
I was going 85 about 10 miles before we actually crashed. I slowed down before we actually went around that curve because I go around that curve every day. I know that it's a bad curve and there's accidents there all the time.
What kind of car were you driving?
A 99 Volkswagen Jetta.
The car was totaled?
Yes.
Did you tell her that you were going to get her another car?
We had a car at work. I'm auto mechanic.
That's not my question.
Yes, I told her that I was going to buy her the car that we had at work and fix it for her, and it was more than equivalent to what she had. She said she didn't want that car. And after that, I'm not obligated, and I did not feel obligated to actually buy her a car. I thought it was just a nice gesture for me to do.
It's not a nice gesture, sir. You caused an accident.
Right.
Your lack of judgment, by virtue of the fact that you had been drinking all night, your lack of judgment and getting behind the wheel and being emotionally agitated with her that evening, which you clearly were. There's no question in my mind that that happened.
Right.
The police indicate that you were driving in excess of the speed limit. Your answer that you provided me says that you had this accident because of the road conditions, because it was icy, going in excess of the speed limits, which the police document.
It says too fast for conditions now.
That's absolutely right. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the hour of the evening. It was dark. Too fast for the fact that you had been drinking champagne and Coke a whole night. All of those things put together suggest to me that this was not an accident brought about by virtue of the fact that accidents sometimes happen. You were doing the wrong thing. And because you were doing the wrong thing, she doesn't have a car anymore.
Right.
So take care of that. You have the Blue Book value on your car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I did give her my car, by the way.
Shouldn't have it anymore, does she?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have, it was signed over to me, but I also have the NADA value of that.
Just a second. Hold it, my dear. You accepted the car from him and you registered it
Not at first. At first, he gave it to me. He said, you can borrow this car until I buy you the replacement for your totaled vehicle.
Okay.
I said, thank you. I told him, like, well, you know what? I'm going to take the car for now, and then I'm going to sue you for the rest.
Is that what she said to you?
Yep.
What kind of car did you give her?
95 Corsica Chevy.
Are you telling me that you signed the title over to her?
Correct.
And she said to you, I'm going to take this car, but I'm going to sue you for the rest of the money that I think you owe me, and you said, okay, I'm going to sign over the car anyway? Mm-hmm. Why in the world would you do that?
Because otherwise, if I took the car back from her, how would she get anywhere?
What do you care?
I don't want to be a jerk. I understand that she didn't have a car because of me, and I didn't want to be a jerk. I wanted her to be able to get around.
You've been driving this car since April?
I've actually been driving it since the accident happened. And the reason why I needed it transferred over into my name is because I found out that he did not carry insurance on it. And I was driving the car, and I need insurance. And in order to carry insurance, it has to be registered in my name. So that's why I had to do that. Otherwise, again, I would be left with no car.
Okay. Why don't you have her do this? Why don't you have her sign this title back over to him?
Signature of the seller, I guess.
Okay. Can I borrow your pen? Thank you.
Good. Now he's got his car back. Go pick it up.
Okay.
It's yours. And now you'll pay her $5,000 so she can go out and buy a car. Judge for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's
Thank you, Judge.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought it was, I guess, fair.
Of course I'm happy. I won. You know, yay.
I was just upset that she wasn't with the party.
He just kept saying, you know, this is my party, you're my guest, and you should be by my side the entire night.
That's pretty much all it was about.
Really have no, beef with him other than this.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Marquez versus Welfare, step forward, please.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
How old are you, Mr. Marquez?
I'm 23. I'll be 24 in a couple of days.
Before you moved in with Miss Welfare and her two children, where were you living?
I was living with my parents.
And when did you move in with Miss Welfare?
I moved in with her in mid-October of 2003.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there until the beginning of April.
And where were you working during that time?
The whole time I was working at Denny's restaurant.
Part-time?
Part-time, yes. I also coached football at the local elementary school.
What was your financial arrangement when you were living with Miss Welfare?
We paid half. I paid $300, she paid $300.
For rent?
For rent, correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
What about the rest of the expenses?
We usually split those down the middle as well.
And what were you doing, Miss Welfare?
I also had two jobs. I was working at two separate restaurants.
Okay. This is what the complaint is about. The complaint says that while you were living there, you purchased a washer and dryer. When you moved out in April of 2004, you told Miss Welfare that she could keep them for a while because you had no place to take them because you were moving back with your parents. A year later, you finally get your own place. You let her know you want your washer and dryer back, and she says, forget it.
Actually, I did have a place to put them. I have a receipt for my storage space, which I purchased in April 17th of 2004 as well, which was actually 5 days after I moved everything out of the apartment.
All right, so you didn't want to put it in your storage space because...
Well, she has two children, and we've been to the laundromat together, and it takes quite a long time to do laundry. And since my parents already had a washer and dryer, I had no need for them at that time. And I had just purchased them in March of that year, which had only been about a month. So I figured I might as well get some use out of them by leaving them at her apartment.
That's somewhat correct, but not completely correct.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
Well, let me hear what your version of the events were.
When he bought those for me, it was an early Mother's Day gift. I was the one doing all the laundry. He never even did his own laundry. I was doing my laundry, his laundry, and both of my children's laundry. And between the two jobs and being at the laundromat all the time, it was a lot of time away, and so we had been discussing, him buying a washer and dryer for me, and he was looking online and said, hey, come and pick the one you want. And so I picked the one I want. He gave them to me. When he moved out, I was sleeping when he moved out. You know, our relationship had gotten kind of rocky. There was never any discussion about me giving them back, ever.
When, for the first time, did you contact her with regard to retrieving these 2 items?
Your Honor, as she said, I moved out at the very beginning of April of 2004. We didn't talk for 2 weeks afterwards. After that, we, began phone conversations, and actually on May 5th of 2004, she came over to my house, my parents' house, for a little Cinco de Mayo get-together. In May of 2004, I gave Miss Welfare $100 because she was having a rough time making it on her own in the apartment, and I have here a check for utilities / other stuff I gave to Miss Welfare for $100 to help her out.
Can you answer my question?
Sure.
You remember what my question was?
Yes, I do. Have we ever talked about it? About the washer and dryer?
When, for the first time, did you ask for it back?
I first asked for it back when I found out I was moving out with my current girlfriend, which was in March of 2005.
Okay, so between April of 2004 and March 2005, you had absolutely no discussion with her about this washer and dryer.
That is incorrect. When I gave her that check, which was dated May 20th of 04, we had discussed it. She actually wanted to purchase the washer and dryer fully. She wanted to give me payments per month. And I told her that since we were becoming good friends, I did not want the only conversation to be between us about the washer and dryer.
At that time, Mr. Marquez, did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No. Actually, when we first broke up,
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You don't go from being lovers to friends without somebody hoping for a little bit more.
That is correct. Yes.
So during that time, and during the time, according to you, she said, why don't you let me make payments on it? You said, no.
Correct.
And now you have a new girlfriend.
Yes, I do.
You moving into an apartment together?
We have currently moved into an apartment as of the 9th of April.
And I assume it doesn't have a washer and dryer.
Actually, it does. After this little skirmish between me and my ex-girlfriend, my current girlfriend went out and purchased one, hoping it would make me feel a little bit better.
Did it?
I was very, very pleased that she would show that much friendship towards me. But I wasn't very angry about the washer and dryer. I was angry at the fact that she took me for granted that I was being nice and letting her borrow the washer and dryer when I could have just put them in my storage.
Get over it. There is something that doesn't ring true, sir, about your story that you told her more than a year ago, that I'm letting you use this piece of equipment that breaks down, that once it's used, it becomes less functional. I'm going to let you use that for as long as it takes. And it just so happens that the time that you want it back is when you're moving in with a new girlfriend. By the way, whose washer and dryer is the new one that was purchased?
It is hers.
I just want her to hear that.
Yes, I've told her that many times.
Very good. And you know whose this is?
Yes.
Hers. Thank you. That's it. Have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It boils down to he has a new girlfriend now.
I told her, I gave her my word that I'd let her use them until I moved out again.
And he needs somebody else to do his laundry.
I actually know how to do my laundry.
I mean, his mom did it, then I did it, and now she's going to do it.
Actually, she taught me how to do it.
I think she made the right decision.
I have no hard feeling towards her.
And I'm thankful. I'm very thankful.
If you move out of an apartment with a girl...
Mrs. Kaminer, step forward.
36-year-old nurse Vicki Herman is suing Louise Kaminer, her husband of 9 years. Vicki claims she's been abused and harassed by her now ex-husband and is suing for damages. Lewis says his ex-wife's allegations are totally false and feels he owes her nothing.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 170 on the calendar in the matter of Herman versus Kaminer. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
You are Mr. Kaminer.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Herman, you and Mr. Kaminer had been married for some time. You are no longer married.
We're still married, trying to divorce him.
Your divorce isn't final yet. You haven't been together for some time. You have one child. little boy who you adopted back in 1991, according to these papers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Herman, I really don't know what you're suing for. Looks to me from your complaint that you're suing for bad marriage. You have to explain it to me. You, sir, have a countersuit. Your countersuit is for some amount of money, $3,800 is, I think, that the price tag that you put on the fact that your wife has been frustrating your visitation with your son. I don't know how you can put a price tag on that. But you're up first, Ms. Herman. You tell me what you're suing for, and then I'll tell you what I think about this case.
Okay. The harassment has been going on for a long time. Verbal harassment, physical harassment, physical abuse.
Well, you say that, and that's what you said here.
I have court papers. I have the police reports here.
Let's start with physical abuse, which you allege, the assault and battery. When are we talking about?
That was September of 1996.
Tell me about that.
Lewis brought our son home to my house at the end of a visitation day. The child was asleep, and as per usual, I came out of my home. We have a 5-foot fence around the house. Came out of the gate, went into the driveway, took my child out of the car, was carrying him in my arms, went through the gate, closed the gate, when Lewis turned around and said, "I want to give him a kiss." Well, I was already inside the gate, and the gate was closed. He pushed the gate open, grabbed a hold of my left arm, pulling me backwards with my child in the right arm. There was between the gate and a tree, it was probably 20, 30 feet. When I started screaming, you know, "I'm going to call the police," and at that point he did let go. I did file a police report. This happened in front of my child. My child was screaming his head off, terrifying.
The reason this all happened is because Jacob woke up and wanted me to give him a kiss goodbye.
Shh. Just a second. Well, I know something happened with that kiss goodbye because that was glossed over. Miss Herman, you say the gate was closed, and according to you, your husband said, "I want to kiss the child goodbye." And you just said to me, "But I was already through the gate."
Right.
Well, what did you say to him? Did you just keep moving?
I just kept going, yeah.
Well, Miss Herman, that's wrong. Let me stop you right there. That's wrong. If he wanted to kiss the child goodbye, even if the gate was closed, you opened the gate just as simply as you closed it behind you, and you let him kiss the child goodbye. I'm not thinking about him. I'm thinking about your child.
So I was
No, you weren't. No. Miss Herman, I haven't started on him yet because there are some things in here that I don't quite think are right. But I'm going to tell you that you said, "No kiss goodbye, screw you," and you kept walking. And that was the wrong thing to do. And you didn't do it in your child's best interest. You did it because you're annoyed with him. Wrong. That doesn't mean he should put his hands on you. That means that you instigated it. So I'm pretty unsympathetic. But when I read these complaints, and there are certain things, Mr. Kaminer, that you acknowledge. For instance, you acknowledge drug use. You acknowledge that you had a long history of drug use, which means that I can understand why she was frustrated with you. But that doesn't excuse the fact that right now you have a child that you have to take into consideration. And when you act out of malice towards him, that's not good for your child, who's in your arms. Could have easily been resolved by you saying, "Want to kiss him goodbye? Kiss Daddy goodbye." Doesn't cost anything. What else are you suing him for?
There's a lot of medical bills for my son. Well, not a lot, but there are medical bills for my son. Dental bills that he's under court orders. He was supposed to pay the health insurance, the life insurance, car insurance, etc., which he's only just started paying. There wasn't any for almost a year.
But you're going to court with regard to those bills, are you not?
No, ma'am. The bills that he didn't pay for a year weren't paid. I paid him because the child needed to be cared for.
Okay.
He was given a copy of the bills. He's supposed to pay half of them. I want them that he should be responsible for this child.
He was supposed to pay for half of them.
Yes, he hasn't paid a penny.
For that year?
Yes.
Is that correct? How much does he owe you for that year, Ms. Herman?
Total it out completely. I have the bills.
Well, you should have had that whole figure. You know you didn't pay for that year, sir.
I've never received any bills for that year, Your Honor.
Did you ever present the bills to him?
That was never told to me.
Just a second.
And on one of those...
Shh, Ms. Herman, did you ever present him, show him the bills?
Yes.
When?
On some of the receipts that you have there on the back of the medication receipts, there's one that I put a date on and had given it to him. But I got to a point where, you know, there was no point in talking to him. All I would do is I'd give him to the attorney and wait to go to court. It's been so long going back and forth.
Who's Lori Kleiman?
That's a counselor that Jacob was seeing.
What kind of counselor?
Well, because of the trauma and stuff that Jacob has had to go through, he is in counseling at the recommendation of a school, which Lewis was aware. Again, Lewis didn't pay the bill, which was for $400 to the previous counselor, who, of course, refused to continue seeing the child, despite Lewis agreeing and being in the meeting and agreeing to the $100 a week charge.
Who's Pamela McNair?
That was the original therapist that Lewis agreed to pay $100 a week to her for counseling for Jacob. He did not pay it. I paid the first $300 and I didn't have any more money. He was given a copy of the bill. He was told that Jacob would not be able to be counseled anymore unless the bill was paid. We got there and the counselor told my son, you can't be seen because the bill's not paid.
Well, then your counselor should have
his or her license revoked. I was in the room at the time. But
Ms. Herman, don't make things worse than they are. If a counselor says to a child, I'm sorry I can't see you anymore because your father hasn't paid the bills.
Well, it wasn't in those exact words.
Well, that's what you just told me.
Basically, she said this will be the last time that she'll be able to see him.
She may have told that to you, but she didn't tell that to the child.
Yes, she did say it would be the last time.
Then she's an idiot. Then you chose an idiot for a counselor.
Well, that's why I changed the counselor.
Well, then why should he pay for a counselor that you picked that was an idiot?
But he was aware.
What do you mean he was aware? You picked an idiot for a counselor, any counselor that says to a 5-year-old child, your parents don't pay, you can't come to see me. I wouldn't let counsel a dog that I didn't like.
This was the counselor that the school recommended.
Miss Herman, I want you to stop. Listen to me. He's no bargain because we haven't touched him yet, right? I want you to stop viewing yourself as a victim. You got to start getting hold of your life. You married him. You're going to divorce him. Stop viewing yourself as a victim. You know, you have to accept some responsibility yourself, including for the incident at the gate.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He doesn't even show up half the time. He doesn't phone. He doesn't say anything.
When you guys are ready for reality, let me talk.
Judge Judy. Lewis Kaminer says his ex-wife's allegations of abuse are totally false. Vicki Herman has brought her ex-husband to court, claiming he has harassed and abused her.
Now, Miss Herman, the reason that I've addressed much of my comment to you during the course of this thing is because I haven't wanted it to appear as if I am going to be unfair to Mr. Kaminer when I now turn my attention to him. Now, how long had you been using drugs? Were you using drugs when you married this lady?
Yes, I was, Your Honor.
What kind of drugs were you using?
Marijuana, Your Honor.
How often?
I was a casual smoker. I had times high and low, yes, Your Honor.
And it was the drug use that ultimately resulted in...
No, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Of course it was. Mr. Kaminer.
I was in a drug rehab program for approximately 6 months prior to my wife filing divorce papers on me, Your Honor.
Did you have a relapse while you were in the drug rehab program?
No, Your Honor. The court has all drug tests showing negative drug use.
During the 6 months that you were in rehab, is what you're telling me that you didn't have a relapse and that while you were in rehab, she left you?
Yes, Your Honor. Not until after the divorce papers were filed for separation, I probably did have a relapse.
Your Honor, may I speak directly to that about the drugs?
Go ahead.
The reason I specifically filed for divorce and the reason we separated is my son, who was 2.5 at the time, pulled out a very large bag of marijuana from under the front seat of his car and said, Mom, what's this? It smells funny. At that point, I told him, he's gone. He refused to go to rehab. He didn't show up half the time for counseling. I told him I would not go to counseling with him because it was his problem. But when you have a 2.5-year-old handing you drugs...
you did absolutely, positively the right thing.
So
you did absolutely, positively the right. When somebody is heavily involved in drug use, half the time they don't even know what they're doing. So she left you. She had good reason.
Good like